Welcome to the C&B Operations Spring Optimization video series. I'm Nate Jansen.
And I'm Jeff Buick. And in this series, we're first out here at our plot near Mitchell, South Dakota, where we have 4 different sections where we're trying out a lot of different things that really have practicality in the farming operation that you have today, but also taking a look at some of the options, some of the features, some of the adjustments that are available on the equipment today and the effect that they can have in your operation. So some of the first things that we want to take a look at is when we first go to the field, right, Nate?
Yep, absolutely. There's a lot of settings adjustments between our meters on planters and tillage setup, guidance lines, a whole host of things. So we want to really take away the confusion and try and get you down to a lot of the information that's really important to your operation. So we've got a lot to talk about, so let's go ahead and take a quick look.
Hi, I'm Denton Stevens, Precision Ag Consultant with the Yankton and Wagner locations in South Dakota. In today's session, I'll be discussing Connect Mobile. Connect Mobile is a technology from John Deere that's available for planting, spraying, and harvesting. For today's example, we'll be discussing planting, and later we'll show you how to hook this system up on an 8RX and a DB60 ExactEmerge. Connect Mobile hardware is factory installed on all model year 2015 and newer planters with ExactEmerge row units, and all model year 2017 and newer planters that are factory installed with MaxEmerge 5E row units, making it easy to get started with Connect Mobile. Connect Mobile planting applications require a wireless data server to be mounted on the planter, and the other component you'll need is a compatible iPad. By connecting the iPad to the wireless data server mounted on the planter, you get performance data in real time from the cab as you're traveling through the field. The real-time data streaming directly to the iPad in the cab of the tractor includes singulation, actual population, target population, seed spacing, applied downforce, gauge wheel margin, ride quality, and variety tracking. This data is also reviewable later on. The value of having this data at your fingertips in real time is the ability to monitor job performance and ensure that the planter is doing exactly what it should. So now that we're out here at this 8RX 410 and DB60 planter, we'll go ahead and show you how to set up your Connect Mobile on the iPad so that you can get your planter performance while you're driving through the field. The first step is going to be to download the Connect Mobile app, and you will need an active My John Deere Operations Center account because you'll use the same credentials for Connect Mobile as you use for the Operations Center. The machine behind me has been put into the C&B Plot account, and so now that we're in Connect Mobile, we'll go ahead and set up planting. And I'm actually going to back out at this point because with the tractor key on, I'm going to access the settings on my iPad, and you can see this serial number in the My Networks that starts with PCWDS. That is the wireless data server. So I'm going to connect to that in my Wi-Fi settings. Once that's completed, I'll go back to my Connect Mobile app. And as you can see over on the right side, we do have a target population in there and some other values which are zeroed out, but basically what this is telling you is that you are connected to the planter. You can also see the image of the planter working through the field. As the operator actively plants through the field, he can choose which planter performance attribute he'd like to look at. Right now, you're set up on singulation, but you could switch that over and view actual population or ground contact and even ground speed as a layer in Connect Mobile. Another handy feature is down towards the bottom, you can see the double screen. If I tap that, it actually splits the screen. And now I can view singulation on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side, I can look at my seed spacing, for example. And that'll give you 2 different layers, but both providing feedback in real time. Today we reviewed Connect Mobile for planting and the value that it provides the operator in monitoring job performance and ensuring seed goes in the ground exactly the way you want it to. Thank you so much for watching today. I'm Denton Stevens with C&B Operations, your John Deere dealer of choice.
Hi, I'm Devin Hookstra, Precision Ag Consultant for Region 5, Iowa, covering Sibley Lake Park, Spencer, Storm Lake, and Ida Grove. Today I'm going to be telling you about AutoTrack turn automation and how it is a full solution for creating accurate turns at the end of the field and creating that accurate time of set down and pickup of the implement for you, and basically start that automation process for you as you're entering the field. Now let's go hop in the cab and check it out. Our display has all of our activations that were needed, so we're going to need our automation 3 or 4.0 activation, and we can confirm that by going to menu, system, and then to our software manager here. And then we go to activations. We have AutoTrack turn automation, that is green. So we are good to go on that. How we get into the screen to set up AutoTrack turn automation is by going to menu, and then we go to applications, and we can see that we have an AutoTrack turn automation application here. So if we click on AutoTrack turn automation, we can see that AutoTrack turn automation is off. That's our status. So if we turn it on, then we're going to get this error detected. So basically we can just click on this, and it's going to give us all of the details on what is going to make our AutoTrack turn automation work. So AutoTrack turn automation is on, iTech Master is on, and then basically our field boundary information must be completed. So what do we not have in here for our field boundary information is a headland boundary size must be defined. Okay, so if we click on this basically continue button on that error, it's going to bring us right to the page on what we need to have set up. So we have an exterior, an interior, and an interior passable. So you can see our yellow is our interior passable. We have a couple different interior impassable ones too. To add that interior boundary, we need to add it to our exterior boundary of our field. So if we click on our boundaries, it's going to list out all of our boundaries. So we have the field information, exterior boundaries, which is our full outside boundary, and then our 2 interior boundaries as well. So if we click the pencil on the exterior boundary of our whole field, we are just going to do a constant offset, but we can do a top and bottom offset. So if we're doing different passes on the top and the bottom, we can change that. Or if we do a driven, so say you might not have a fully consistent boundary around your field, so it's a little bit more accurate for us when we're doing the AutoTrack turn automation. For this trial, we're going to do a constant offset. We're pulling a 60-foot planter, so we're going to do 2 passes around our exterior boundary. If we click on this, so that's 120 feet. We hit OK. Now we can see on our field that it is drawn that interior boundary around the exterior, and that's going to be our headland boundary. So we hit save, we hit OK. And now once we back out of all of this, it's going to bring us back to our AutoTrack turn automation status page. So now you can see our field boundary information must be complete is a green check mark. A compatible guidance line type must be selected. We have a green check mark there. Headland sequences must be defined. Turn automation measurements must be valid. Implement profile requirements must be met. And machine profile requirements must be met. So what those are going to consist of is pretty much offsets for the machine. So we need to make sure that all of our offsets are very accurate for this, because we don't want to run into any fences or anything like that. So next thing you can see is machine speed automation must be ready. So machine speed automation must be authorized, and machine speed automation must be reserved. So basically that's saying that we need to have it for just this implement and so on. That should actually clear once we start rolling. Next, I'm going to talk about kind of our setup on AutoTrack turn automation. So just looking at our triggered sequences here, we have headlands and interior boundaries. So interior boundaries can be passable or impassable, but we can set up sequences to like lift, and then once we're through that, we can have it set back down as well. But for this trial, we are going to be doing headland boundaries. And so we have our enter headlands trigger. We're entering headlands and exiting headland. So those are our two sequences. We can see that on here we have the function of engine speed and SCV1. Our distance for the engine speed is going to be 20 feet before our headland. So before we get into our headland, 20 feet before that, we're gonna slow down our engine speed, which will slow us down. And then we also have SCV1, and that is going to be extending. So that's going to be lifting the planter, and we're gonna do that 2 feet into the headland. So those are our two enter headland sequences. So if we go to exit headland, same process. We are going to be speeding up our engine and retracting our SCV1 55 feet before our headland. So when we come in, that planter is going to be down and our section control all works properly as we're exiting the headland. Next thing are the turn settings. So we have 125 as our aggressiveness. Basically, the aggressiveness is going to be how tight our turn is or how big of a light bulb turn our tractor is going to make. So you can see that here, this one, the lower the number, the bigger the light bulb, the higher the number, the tighter the turn. So just kind of depending on how your field is set up. So those kind of are operator preference on how that turn is made and field setup. Next thing is our start turn. So when we're going to start the turn, you can see this is our headland boundary here. So when are we going to start that turn? Currently we are set at 22 feet. Another kind of field preference or operator preference there on when it starts the turn. Next thing is going to be our max turn speed is 5.8 miles per hour. So that's the maximum speed that we are going to be turning. And then our max infield speed is 8 miles an hour. AutoTrack turn automation is compatible with 6R, 7R, 8R, 8RT, 90/30 series with a power shift, a 9R, RT, and RX. Basically on the 6Rs, it's model year 12 or newer with the IVT and iTech equipped. 7R tractors is going to be model year 2011 and newer with the command quad shift, E23, power shift, or IVT. All of our 80/30 series tractors will work with. The 8R and 8RT is going to be 2010 and newer. And the 90/30 series is going to be power shift. 9R, RT, RX is going to be 2012 or newer. So this is compatible with tillage, planters, basically our tractor implements this is going to be compatible with. Now let's check out how this whole system works.
Compared to other John Deere dealerships, here at C&B Operations, we offer a unique solution to answer the quick questions related to John Deere Precision Ag Technologies through our very own C&B Precision Ag Support Center. We understand, for many of you, that you don't sit in front of a Green Star display every day of the year like we do. Our trained staff is focused on your operations uptime related to precision ag technology, and we have multiple resources at our fingertips to answer your questions, no matter if you are in the cab, at your desk, or on your mobile device. We are ready to serve you. Pay as you go by calling in when you need assistance, or prepay for unlimited phone support during normal operational hours. Disclaimer, side effects may include but are not limited to stress-free planting and harvest seasons, constant smiling, fainting by your local FSA and crop insurance agent due to ease of reporting, jealous neighbors or coffee shop buddies due to how well your data looks, people questioning why you are in such a good mood, ability to select the correct guidance line when you are in the field, much improved golf swing and year-round tan due to not cleaning data all winter. Visit any one of our C&B operations locations to get signed up or contact us here at the Support Center at 507-200-3060. For more information, visit us in the store or online at deerequipment.com.
So we're behind our DB60 right now as we get to the field, and one of the things we really want to take a look at is making sure that we have the right settings on the monitor so we create a good seed trench and a good growing condition for the seed that we're putting in the ground. And one of the things that comes up a lot of times that varies year to year is downforce, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, downforce changes with our conditions. We have dry conditions, wet conditions, somewhere in between, sandy soil, loamy soil, whatever. It's going to make a really big difference in how we create that seed trench to make sure we're properly getting to depth, but also allowing that seed the best opportunity to grow after the planter leaves.
So we have downforce and we have margin, right? And so we can look at both of those things on the monitor. And one of the things you want to do is just get out right away, even if you have your settings from last year as a good point to start with. A lot can be told about how the row unit works when we get back here and put our hands on it and see how the row unit is engaging the ground. So let's take a little closer look at that. The first thing we want to do is get down here on our depth gauge wheels, and if you grab a hold of them and just give them a spin and just see, you don't want it to be real free spinning, right? But we do want to be able to just pull it with our hand just ever so slightly, and you can see how I'm forcing it to move just a little bit here. Nate, you maybe give yours a try, and it moves real nice. Just enough where I have to give it some force to get it to move, and it doesn't just spin all on its own, but it's also not so hard that, you know, I'm grunting when I'm trying to turn that wheel, right?
Yep, absolutely. We want to make sure we have little enough downforce so we can physically move the wheels with our hands. Now we've also taken here, we've put the planter in the ground, we've pulled forward just about 2-3 feet so that we get a good look in between the gauge wheels and our closing wheels so that we get a good look at the seed trench. Now we can also do this by digging or holding up our closing wheels as well, and obviously we want to check behind when we're actually planting, but this gives us a good look of our seed wall, right? So when we put our downforce onto our gauge wheels, we want to make sure that we've got enough compaction that we're holding the seed wall trench to let the seed get to full seed depth, and then have it loose enough that we're not creating smearing, and that our closing wheels can do a proper job breaking that trench up and ultimately closing it.
Later on in the season, if you're doing some root digs, for example, you can actually tell if somebody had way too much downforce on their row units because their roots just go straight down like this and they were never able to grow out to the side. Obviously, you know, a nice rain after you plant covers up some of the sins of planting that may be created. Yep. But you want that, like you say, to be firm enough, but also loose enough so that it can make it through. So as you can see, Nate's actually been able to grab the side of the seed trench here and just feel how it is. And it does provide a nice 2-inch depth here for us, or 1 3/4. But it also, as we run our hands alongside of it, crumbles into the seed trench as well. So it's not a hard compacted surface, so we know where we're at right now. So where in the plot here, where are we sitting as far as the amount of downforce that we have on these row units, Nate?
Yep, so the 2021 growing season so far, what we've seen in a lot of the upper Midwest, we've got really dry conditions. Now when we think about taking some dry soil and trying to compress it, right? You can push on it all day long and it's not going to stay in a ball, right? Versus if we just had a rain, or if we've had a more aggressive winter, we had a little more moisture in our soil, obviously then we need to be more concerned about that smearing the sidewall type of action. So here in the plot, it's been a little bit drier here in Mitchell. We had a really mild winter, not a lot of rainfall so far this spring. We ran about 220 to 250 pounds of downforce in most of the plot, and we were monitoring the top 3-4 inches of topsoil as we took our different tillage tools across, just to make sure we were creating a nice seed bed to start. and then also maintaining our depth when we went through the field through the different trials.
So if I'm out in the field and I notice that, boy, my sidewall is really compacted, I've got some smearing going on, or maybe I notice on the screen that my ride quality is too loose on the other end, right? And I'm bouncing around too much, my ground contact is degrading. What do I change on the monitor to get the row unit to adjust the way that I want to?
Yep, so this planter is equipped with individual row hydraulic downforce. So we're able to change very quickly the amount of downforce on each unit. And when we have it in the active mode, we call it, we adjust what we call margin, right? And like we talked a little bit about just setting that properly. So it's not the total amount of pounds we're putting on the row unit. It ultimately is the amount of pounds outside of the weight of the unit that we're putting in the ground.
Yep, so the amount of weight to keep it in the ground, basically, right? So we still have a certain amount of downforce, but margin is the additional weight to keep the unit in the ground.
Absolutely. So like you mentioned before, Jeff, when we talk about our good ride or our ground contact, really what ground contact means is what percentage of the time am I staying at my seed depth? Okay, and we want 100% all the time, right? We might cross some old fenceways or things like that, but ultimately we want to see 100% on that. So we want to add enough margin to make sure our units aren't bouncing, we're maintaining our seed depth, but then come back and check and make sure that we're not creating that smearing or putting too much downforce.
Sure, so if I see that degrading and let's say my margin's at 50, I may take a look at going up to 70 or 80, make a step, not necessarily just 5 pounds at a time, right?
20 to 30, pretty common to take steps up just to, make one adjustment and check it. Don't try and make 6 at one time.
That's right.
And ultimately we want to make sure we get out and check behind. We're all very good at checking a lot day one, and then we get the finish line in sight and we just go, go, go. Well, one thing to keep in mind is conditions change. Even if we haven't gotten a rain, field to field, hilltops, bottoms, fence lines, everything else, our conditions change a lot. So we really encourage you to get out, ground truth what's happening behind the planter, and it also provides a good look just to make sure everything's in proper working order, no adjustments have changed from bouncing or, let's face it, you have somebody else helping you change depth, you guys might count your holes different and go different ways. So.
That's right, yep. So another thing that we take a look at besides downforce and margin is just how we're closing the seed trench here behind our furrow openers. And so at the dealership, we try to do the best job that we can to test this out on the lot and to make sure that, that we're closing the seed trench evenly on both sides of it. And that's important because if your closing wheels are misaligned and one of these wheels is directly on top of the seed trench where it was cut, now we're packing where that seed is laying harder than any other spot, or it may be actually forcing it off to the side. It's causing just unevenness for that corn plant to grow or that soybean plant to grow or whatever you're putting into the ground. Stand behind the row unit and you should be able to look down and see where the seed trench is right between the closing wheels, and where those closing wheels come in, you just want on each side of that seed trench. Now if it's off, it'll stick out real clear as day there. So if you need to make adjustments, there are some minor adjustments up here with these bolts that you can loosen up, grab the closing wheels, and then move them to the side and then tighten them back down. Now one side's reverse thread compared to the other, right? So they stay tight. But again, if you're looking for a little bit more of a course adjustment or move it a little bit more, we can actually take the bolts out of these closing wheels, and there's washers in there and spacers. And we just want to make sure that if we add a washer to one side, it's removing it from another. Yep. We don't want to go home and grab a bunch of washers from the bolt bin and add a bunch to one side and not necessarily the other. So we create some consistency in the space that we have between our closing wheels behind the planter.
So one other thing we look at as far as course adjustments on the back, there's also 2 different slotted holes back here that we can have our closing wheels in. So we can have them aligned here, we can move them both back, or we can actually offset them as well. So a combination of both the cammed fronts and the back positions here and the washers allows us for a lot of range of position here. And again, like you mentioned, Jeff, just making sure that we have the proper width here and that we're also crushing that sidewall and creating the best seed to soil contact we possibly can. The other thing that can happen is if we're misaligned here, we can actually have residue that we actively push right on top of the seed, and then a little dirt will trickle on top of it, and that's not going to create a nice warm fuzzy blanket for the seed to grow in.
That's right. Anytime you have an air pocket in your soil, that's just going to kill the seed eventually, right?
Absolutely.
So we want to make sure that we have good seed to soil contact. Obviously, there's a lot of different options out there with the John Deere planters today for closing wheels. In our plot today, both planters are using the standard rubber closing wheel from John Deere. This planter is equipped with pneumatic closing wheels, which allows you to make adjustments right from the cab, which is really nice. On the other planter, we did some testing with depth. We found when we got pretty shallow, we didn't want to put a lot of downforce back here, and so that took a lot of time to go back and change 31 rows to get them where we wanted it to be. So
Absolutely.
This is a really nice feature.
Yeah, and you look at 4 different adjustments on the spring closing wheels versus 25 on the pneumatic. So a lot more finesse, if you will, control-wise, being able to really put the right amount of pressure that we need and change it on the fly if we need.
So that's just a recap of when we take a look at first getting out into the field. If you're looking to make some adjustments with downforce, with margin, and making sure your closing wheels are properly aligned, that'll set you up for success during your planting season.
Thanks for joining us and learning about all the exciting technology that John Deere and C&B have to offer.
Becoming a dealer of choice is not an easy task, but we're definitely committed to it. We look forward to sharing this information with you and helping you grow your operation into the future.
With C&B Operations, I'm Nate Jansen.
And I'm Jeff Buick, committed to being your dealer of choice.
C&B Operations wants you to go to the field with confidence on your next pass. For many years, John Deere has allowed for documentation of many different passes. Over those years, it has been very easy to collect an abundance of data and abundance of information. We will work to clean up information pertaining to guidance lines, client farm field information, boundaries, AutoPath, and more. By doing this, it creates an accurate reporting and setup information for your John Deere, Greenstar, and competitive displays. Ask about our customer loyalty program when you sign up for this service. For more information, visit us in the store or online at deerequipment.com.